There's something happening in your brain right now that science is only beginning to understand. Every memory you've ever formed isn't just stored in neural networks. It exists as quantum information patterns that actively shape your present reality and determine your future possibilities. Dr. Stuart Hameroff's groundbreaking research on microtubules has revealed that consciousness operates through quantum processes occurring within the cellular structures of neurons themselves, creating what he calls orchestrated objective reduction, where memories exist in quantum superposition until the moment they're accessed. But here's where it gets extraordinary. These quantum memory patterns don't just passively store information from your past. They're actively broadcasting into your present moment, creating probability fields that influence what experiences you attract, what opportunities you notice, and what futures become available to you. Every traumatic memory, every moment of joy, every limiting belief you've ever formed is operating as a quantum field that's continuously programming your reality from the inside out. Dr. Henry Stapp's research at UC Berkeley demonstrates that consciousness collapses quantum wave functions through the act of observation. But his most profound discovery is that memories themselves act as quantum observers, continuously collapsing probability waves based on past experiences. Your memories aren't just records of what happened, they're quantum algorithms running in the background of your consciousness, determining which possibilities get selected from the infinite field of potential futures. If you can feel the profound implications of this truth resonating through your awareness right now, that your memories are literally programming your future reality type 777 in the comments below. This isn't just acknowledgement, it's your conscious declaration that you're ready to take control of the quantum memory patterns that have been unconsciously directing your life. When you understand that memories exist as quantum information patterns rather than fixed neural recordings, everything about personal transformation changes. You're not trying to overcome your past or escape your history. You're learning to consciously reprogram the quantum fields that your memories generate, essentially updating the software that's running your reality experience. Dr. Roger Penrose's work on objective reduction reveals that quantum processes in microtubules can maintain coherence for much longer than previously thought possible in biological systems. This extended quantum coherence means that memories can exist in superposition states, where multiple versions of past events coexist until consciousness selects which version to collapse into present experience. You're not just remembering your past, you're continuously choosing which version of your past to make real in your present moment. The implications are staggering. Every time you recall a memory, you're not just accessing stored information, you're collapsing quantum probability waves and literally determining which version of that memory becomes real in your current experience. Dr. Yasunori Nomura's research on holographic memory suggests that each memory exists as a holographic projection containing infinite potential perspectives, and consciousness acts as the selector mechanism determining which perspective gets activated. This explains why two people can experience the same event, yet have completely different memories of what happened. They're not misremembering, they're accessing different quantum states of the same event, collapsing different probability patterns based on their consciousness filters and belief systems. Your memories aren't objective records of reality, they're subjective quantum constructions that you're continuously creating and recreating through the act of remembering. Dr. Anil Seth's research on predictive processing shows that your brain doesn't just respond to current sensory input, it's continuously generating predictions about reality based on past experiences, and these predictions actually determine what you perceive in the present moment. Your memory patterns are functioning as quantum prediction algorithms, creating probability fields that influence not just how you interpret current experiences, but what experiences actually manifest in your reality. When traumatic memories exist in your quantum field, they're not just causing emotional distress. They're broadcasting limitation patterns that restrict the range of possibilities available to you. These traumatic quantum patterns create what researchers call attractor states, where consciousness gets pulled toward experiences that match the vibrational signature of past trauma. You keep experiencing similar painful situations, not because life is random or unfair, but because unresolved traumatic memories are quantum magnets, attracting matching experiences. But the reverse is also true. Positive memories, moments of peak experience, and states of expanded consciousness create quantum fields that attract corresponding experiences. When you maintain conscious access to these elevated memory states, you're literally programming your reality to attract more experiences that match those quantum signatures. Dr. Endel Tulving's research on episodic memory reveals that remembering involves what he calls mental time travel. Consciousness actually travels back to past moments and forward to imagined futures. From a quantum perspective, this mental time travel is literal. Consciousness can access past and future quantum states because linear time is a construct of the physical plane, while quantum memory operates outside temporal limitations. This means you can consciously access not just memories from your current lifetime, but potentially quantum memory patterns from what mystics call past lives, or what quantum physicists might describe as alternate probability streams. The concept of reincarnation may actually be describing consciousness accessing quantum memory banks from parallel quantum realities, where different versions of your consciousness had different experiences. Advanced practitioners report being able to access memories that seem to come from different historical periods, different geographical locations, and even different planetary environments. Rather than being fantasies or imagination, these may be genuine accesses to quantum memory fields that exist beyond individual biological lifetimes. Consciousness appears capable of interfacing with universal memory banks that contain experiential patterns from throughout cosmic history. Dr. Bruce Lipton's epigenetic research demonstrates that environmental influences can alter genetic expression within a single generation, but his latest work suggests that these epigenetic changes may be influenced by quantum memory patterns from ancestral experiences. Traumatic events experienced by your grandparents or great-grandparents may exist as quantum information patterns in your cellular memory, influencing your current life experiences through inherited quantum fields. This provides a scientific framework for understanding concepts like ancestral healing, family constellation work, and generational trauma patterns. When you heal traumatic quantum memories in your own consciousness, you may be simultaneously healing those patterns for your entire ancestral lineage, both past and future, because quantum information transcends linear time boundaries. The ancient concept of karma begins to make scientific sense when understood as quantum memory programming. Every action, thought, and emotion creates quantum information patterns that persist beyond physical death, potentially influencing future incarnations or probability streams. Karma isn't mystical punishment or reward. It's simply the persistence of quantum memory patterns that continue attracting matching experiences until they're consciously resolved. Dr. Ian Stevenson's research on children who remember past lives provides compelling evidence that detailed memory patterns can transfer between different biological incarnations. These children often have specific knowledge about deceased individuals they could not have learned through normal means, suggesting that quantum memory patterns can interface with different biological systems across time. But you don't need to believe in reincarnation to benefit from understanding quantum memory. Even within your current lifetime, you have access to memory patterns from every stage of your development, including pre-verbal memories from infancy and even pre-birth experiences. These early quantum memory patterns often contain the foundational programming that determines your core beliefs about reality, safety, love, and possibility. Dr. Arthur Janoff's research on primal therapy demonstrates that accessing and processing early traumatic memories can produce dramatic healing effects that extend far beyond psychological relief. When quantum memory patterns from birth trauma, prenatal stress, or early attachment wounds are consciously processed and resolved, clients often experience spontaneous healing of physical conditions, dramatic improvements in life circumstances, and access to capabilities they never knew they possessed. The reason early memories have such profound effects is that they're formed during periods when consciousness is most malleable and quantum coherence is highest. Traumatic memories formed during these developmental windows create particularly powerful quantum fields that influence all subsequent life experiences. But when these foundational patterns are healed, the ripple effects can transform every aspect of your reality because the core programming gets updated. Dr. Stanislav Grof's research with psychedelic therapy reveals that consciousness can access what he calls transpersonal memories, experiential patterns that seem to originate beyond individual personal history. Participants in his studies report accessing memories from the collective human experience, archetypal patterns, and even cosmic evolutionary processes. These transpersonal memories suggest that individual consciousness can interface with universal quantum memory fields that contain the experiential history of all consciousness throughout cosmic evolution. When you understand that your individual memories are actually fragments of a cosmic memory system, personal healing becomes contribution to universal healing. Every traumatic pattern you resolve, every limitation you transcend, every expansion you achieve becomes available to the collective quantum memory field, making it easier for others to access those same transformations. This is why certain breakthrough insights, healing modalities, and consciousness technologies seem to emerge simultaneously in different parts of the world. Researchers call this phenomenon morphic resonance, but it may actually be describing how quantum memory patterns propagate through collective consciousness fields. When enough individuals develop new capabilities or resolve particular trauma patterns, those quantum templates become accessible to the entire human collective. Dr. Lynn McTaggart's research on group healing intentions demonstrates that focused collective consciousness can alter biological processes in target individuals across unlimited distances. When groups focus healing intention on specific people, measurable improvements occur in immune function, cellular regeneration, and even genetic expression. These effects suggest that consciousness can directly interface with the quantum memory patterns that coordinate biological function. The implications for personal transformation are profound. Instead of trying to heal yourself in isolation, you can tap into the collective healing intentions of groups, healing communities, and even the accumulated wisdom of everyone who has ever successfully resolved similar challenges. Your individual healing process becomes accelerated when you learn to access the quantum memory banks of successful healing that exist in the collective field. But accessing collective quantum memory requires developing what researchers call quantum coherence consciousness, awareness states where individual consciousness resonates with larger consciousness systems. In ordinary states of awareness, you're primarily accessing personal memory patterns from your individual lifetime. But as consciousness becomes more coherent and expanded, you gain access to transpersonal memory patterns that can provide solutions, capabilities, and wisdom that far exceed your personal experience. Ancient spiritual traditions understood this principle and developed specific practices for accessing transpersonal memory states. Meditation, breathwork, sacred plant ceremonies, and consciousness-altering practices weren't just spiritual exercises, they were technologies for interfacing with cosmic memory banks that contain the accumulated wisdom and capabilities of all consciousness throughout universal evolution. Dr. Rick Strassman's research with DMT demonstrates that consciousness can access highly detailed information about advanced civilizations, cosmic history, and universal principles that participants could not have learned through normal education or experience. These downloads appear to be genuine access to quantum memory fields that contain information from throughout cosmic evolution. Modern neuroscience is beginning to validate these ancient approaches through research on altered states of consciousness. Dr. Robin Carhart Harris's work with psilocybin shows that psychedelic states dramatically increase neural connectivity, allowing different brain regions to communicate in ways that don't occur during ordinary consciousness. This enhanced connectivity may allow access to quantum memory patterns that are normally isolated from conscious awareness, but you don't need psychedelics to access expanded memory states. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research with advanced meditators shows that sustained meditation practice can produce brain changes that allow access to information and capabilities that seem to transcend individual limitations. Long-term practitioners report accessing knowledge about quantum physics, healing modalities, and consciousness technologies that they never studied through conventional means. The key appears to be achieving what Dr. Dispenza calls coherent brain states, where different neural networks synchronize into unified field patterns. In these coherent states, consciousness can apparently interface with quantum memory fields that exist beyond individual biological systems, accessing information and capabilities from the collective human knowledge base. Dr. Eben Alexander's near-death experience research provides compelling evidence that consciousness can operate independently of brain function and access vast repositories of information during clinical death states. Participants consistently report accessing knowledge about cosmic history, universal principles, and advanced healing technologies during periods when their brains showed no measurable activity. These experiences suggest that quantum memory isn't stored in biological systems, but exists as information fields that consciousness can access when freed from normal biological constraints. During near-death states, consciousness apparently gains access to cosmic memory banks that contain the accumulated wisdom and experience of all conscious beings throughout universal evolution. The practical implications are extraordinary. If quantum memory patterns exist as accessible information fields, then every challenge you face, every goal you want to achieve, every capability you want to develop already has solution templates available in the collective memory banks. Your task isn't to figure everything out from scratch, it's to learn how to access the quantum memory patterns that contain the solutions you need. This reframes personal development from individual struggle to cosmic collaboration. Instead of relying solely on your personal experience and capabilities, you can learn to interface with the quantum memory patterns of everyone who has ever successfully navigated similar challenges. The accumulated wisdom of human civilization becomes your personal resource library when you know how to access it. Dr. Edgar Mitchell's research on quantum holography suggests that consciousness operates through what he calls quantum resonance, with information fields that exist throughout the universe. This resonance allows consciousness to access non-local information that transcends the limitations of individual brain-based memory systems. Advanced practitioners learn to tune their consciousness to specific resonance frequencies that provide access to particular types of quantum memory patterns. They can access healing knowledge by resonating with the memory patterns of successful healers, develop artistic capabilities by interfacing with the quantum signatures of master artists, or enhance cognitive function by connecting with the memory patterns of genius-level intelligences. The ancient concept of channeling may actually describe consciousness achieving quantum resonance with specific memory patterns from deceased individuals, advanced civilizations, or cosmic intelligence systems. Rather than contacting external entities, channelers may be accessing quantum memory banks that contain the accumulated knowledge and personality patterns of advanced consciousness that once operated through biological systems. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance research demonstrates that when certain behaviors or capabilities are developed by members of a species, those same capabilities become easier for other members to develop, even across geographical and temporal separations. This phenomenon suggests that successful adaptations create quantum memory patterns that become accessible to the entire species through morphic field connections. Human consciousness appears to operate through similar morphic field connections, allowing individuals to access capabilities and knowledge that have been developed by other humans throughout history. When you develop new skills, overcome particular challenges, or achieve expanded states of consciousness, you're not just transforming yourself, you're contributing quantum memory patterns to the collective human field that makes similar transformations easier for everyone else. This understanding completely reframes the purpose of personal development work. You're not just improving your individual life, you're participating in the conscious evolution of human capabilities by developing and contributing new quantum memory patterns to the collective field. Every limitation you transcend, every fear you resolve, every expansion you achieve becomes a gift to the entire human species. But accessing these collective quantum memory patterns requires developing specific consciousness skills that most people never learn. Your default consciousness state is programmed to access primarily personal memory patterns from your individual lifetime. Accessing transpersonal memory requires expanding your identity beyond individual limitations and learning to operate from cosmic rather than personal perspectives. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research on MindSight describes the capacity to perceive the internal world of self and others with more clarity and empathy. But his latest work suggests that MindSight can be developed to interface with quantum memory patterns that exist beyond individual psychological boundaries. Advanced practitioners can apparently perceive the internal experiences of deceased individuals, access the memory patterns of historical figures, and even interface with the consciousness patterns of advanced cosmic intelligences. The development of these expanded perception capabilities appears to be a natural evolution of human consciousness that becomes available when individuals achieve sufficient psychological integration and emotional coherence. Trauma, fear, and limiting beliefs create interference patterns that block access to transpersonal memory states, while healing, love, and expanded awareness create the coherence necessary for cosmic memory interface. This is why spiritual traditions have always emphasized psychological healing and emotional purification as prerequisites for advanced consciousness development. You can't access cosmic memory banks while your consciousness is dominated by unresolved personal trauma patterns. The quantum interference created by psychological wounds blocks the resonance frequencies necessary for transpersonal memory access. But once psychological integration reaches sufficient levels, consciousness naturally begins expanding beyond individual limitations and gaining access to quantum memory patterns that contain capabilities and knowledge far beyond personal experience. This expansion isn't the result of special techniques or esoteric practices. It's the natural flowering of consciousness when interference patterns are removed and coherence is achieved. Dr. Jeffrey Mishlov's research on psi phenomena documents thousands of cases where individuals demonstrated access to information and capabilities that transcend normal human limitations. These cases provide compelling evidence that consciousness contains inherent capacities for interfacing with quantum memory fields that exist beyond individual biological systems. Rather than being supernatural gifts limited to special individuals, these capabilities appear to be natural potentials that become accessible when consciousness achieves sufficient coherence and integration. Every human being appears to have latent abilities for accessing cosmic memory banks, but these capabilities remain dormant until activated through consciousness development practices. The activation process involves what researchers call consciousness coherence training, systematic practices for developing the mental clarity, emotional stability, and identity flexibility necessary for transpersonal memory access. Traditional meditation, contemplative prayer, breathwork, and other consciousness disciplines serve as training methods for developing the quantum coherence necessary for cosmic memory interface. But the most effective approaches combine traditional consciousness practices with modern understanding of neuroscience, quantum physics, and consciousness research. By understanding the mechanisms through which consciousness interfaces with quantum memory fields, practitioners can develop more efficient and reliable methods for accessing transpersonal capabilities. Dr. Joe Dispenza's workshops demonstrate that combining neuroscience education with advanced meditation practices can accelerate consciousness development in ways that would have taken decades using traditional approaches alone. Participants regularly report accessing information and capabilities that seem to come from beyond their personal experience, suggesting rapid development of quantum memory interface abilities. The key insight is that consciousness development accelerates when understanding and practice work together. Intellectual knowledge about quantum memory fields provides the conceptual framework necessary for consciousness to navigate transpersonal states effectively, while meditative practices provide the direct experience of quantum coherence that allows actual interface with cosmic memory banks. But accessing quantum memory patterns is only the beginning. The real transformation occurs when you learn to consciously reprogram the memory patterns that are actively shaping your current reality. Every limiting belief, traumatic memory, and restricting identity pattern exists as quantum information that's continuously broadcasting into your present experience, attracting circumstances that match those vibrational signatures. Dr. Bruce Lipton's research on belief systems shows that subconscious beliefs control gene expression, immune function, and cellular behavior with greater influence than conscious intentions. But his latest work suggests that these subconscious beliefs are actually quantum memory patterns from past experiences that continue operating as background programs unless consciously accessed and updated. When you understand that limiting beliefs are quantum memory patterns rather than fixed truths about reality, belief change becomes memory reprogramming. Instead of trying to override negative beliefs with positive thinking, you learn to access the original experiences that created those belief patterns and update the quantum information they contain. This approach to belief change produces results that seem miraculous from conventional perspectives, because you're working at the quantum information level where beliefs are actually formed and maintained. When quantum memory patterns are updated, corresponding changes occur automatically in gene expression, neural pathways, and behavioral patterns without conscious effort or willpower. Dr. Candace Pert's research on neuropeptides reveals that emotions are information molecules that communicate throughout every cell in your body. But her latest insights suggest that emotional patterns are encoded in quantum memory fields that persist beyond individual lifetimes. Emotional traumas create quantum information patterns that can influence multiple incarnations until they're consciously resolved at the quantum level. This explains why some people seem to carry emotional patterns that have no apparent connection to their current lifetime experiences. They may be dealing with quantum memory patterns from previous incarnations, ancestral lineages, or even collective human trauma that exists in the morphic field. Healing these transpersonal emotional patterns often requires accessing quantum memory states that transcend individual biographical history. But regardless of their origin, emotional patterns can be reprogrammed when you understand their quantum nature. Every emotion exists as vibrational information that attracts matching experiences, and these emotional patterns can be consciously modified through quantum memory work. Instead of being victim to inherited emotional programming, you can become the conscious designer of your emotional reality. Dr. Dan Siegel's research on neural integration demonstrates that psychological healing occurs when different parts of the brain learn to communicate more effectively. But his work also suggests that true integration involves connecting with quantum memory patterns that exist beyond individual neural networks. The most profound healing occurs when personal memory integrates with transpersonal wisdom patterns that provide cosmic perspective on individual challenges. This integration process allows trauma to be recontextualized within larger frameworks of meaning that transform suffering into wisdom. Instead of carrying traumatic memories as wounds, they become transformed into quantum wisdom patterns that contribute to your capacity for helping others navigate similar challenges. When quantum memory patterns are healed and integrated, they don't disappear, they transform into wisdom resources that become available for collective healing work. Your personal healing journey becomes contribution to the cosmic healing of consciousness itself, adding resolution patterns to the quantum field that help others navigate similar transformations more easily. Dr. Stanislav Grof's Cartography of Consciousness describes how individual healing naturally expands into transpersonal service as integration deepens. When personal psychological work reaches sufficient levels, consciousness automatically begins engaging with collective healing projects that serve the evolution of human awareness. This expansion isn't the result of moral obligation or spiritual idealism. It's the natural expression of consciousness that has integrated its personal healing work and gained access to cosmic memory patterns that reveal the interconnected nature of all consciousness evolution. Personal healing becomes cosmic service because individual consciousness recognizes its fundamental unity with universal consciousness. The ultimate goal of quantum memory work isn't just personal healing or individual capability enhancement. It's the conscious participation in universal consciousness evolution through the integration and contribution of wisdom patterns that serve the collective awakening of all beings throughout cosmic history. This participation occurs through what Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett calls predictive processing, the brain's continuous construction of reality based on past experiences. But her research reveals something far more profound than simple pattern recognition. The predictive models your brain creates from memory don't just interpret incoming sensory data, They actively construct the reality you experience by determining which possibilities your consciousness notices, which opportunities become available, and which futures can manifest. Every quantum memory pattern in your consciousness operates as a predictive algorithm that's continuously scanning for experiences that match its vibrational signature. Traumatic memories create prediction patterns that scan for danger, betrayal, and limitation, causing you to notice and attract circumstances that confirm those expectations. Peak experience memories generate prediction algorithms that scan for joy, opportunity, and expansion, drawing your attention to possibilities that match those elevated states. But here's what most people don't realize. These predictive processes aren't just influencing your perception of present circumstances, they're creating temporal loops that reach both backward and forward through time, literally reshaping your past experiences and determining your future possibilities. Dr. Karim Nader's groundbreaking research on memory reconsolidation demonstrates that every time you recall a memory, it becomes neurochemically labeled and can be modified before being restored. This means your memories aren't fixed recordings of past events. They're dynamic quantum constructions that change every time you access them. The profound implication is that you're continuously rewriting your past through the lens of your present consciousness state. When you recall childhood memories from an adult perspective informed by years of healing and growth, you're not just remembering differently, you're literally updating the quantum information patterns of those memories, changing their vibrational signature and their influence on your current reality. The past isn't fixed. It's a quantum construction that's continuously being updated through present moment consciousness. Dr. Lynn Nadel's research on multiple trace theory shows that memories exist in multiple versions simultaneously, and the version that gets activated depends on your current consciousness state and the context in which you're remembering. This means you have access to infinite variations of every memory, from traumatic interpretations that create limitation patterns to empowering perspectives that generate possibility fields. When you consciously choose to remember challenging experiences from perspectives of growth, learning, and wisdom rather than victimhood and limitation, you're literally selecting different quantum memory tracks that broadcast different information into your present reality. The same past experiences that once created limitation patterns can be transformed into empowerment resources through conscious memory reconstruction. But the temporal loops created by quantum memory extend far beyond individual past experiences. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus's research on false memory formation reveals that consciousness can create completely artificial memories that feel entirely real and influence behavior as powerfully as genuine historical experiences. If consciousness can construct false memories that operate as real memory patterns, then the distinction between actual past events and imagined experiences becomes irrelevant at the quantum level. This suggests that you can consciously construct empowering memory patterns from imagined experiences, and these constructed memories will operate as quantum information fields that attract matching experiences into your reality. Instead of being limited to learning from actual past experiences, you can program your consciousness with ideal memory patterns that broadcast the vibrational signatures necessary for attracting desired futures. Advanced practitioners learn to construct what could be called quantum memory installations, detailed imaginary experiences that are vividly programmed into consciousness with sufficient emotional intensity and sensory richness to operate as genuine memory patterns. These constructed memories become quantum templates that attract corresponding real-world experiences by broadcasting the exact vibrational signatures needed for manifestation. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research with advanced meditators demonstrates that consciousness can create memories of future experiences that feel more real and emotionally engaging than actual past events. Participants who consistently practice remembering their future report that these imagined memory patterns begin attracting corresponding real-world experiences with startling accuracy and speed. The mechanism appears to involve what quantum physicists call retrocausality, the influence of future events on past conditions. When you create vivid memories of desired future experiences, those quantum memory patterns reach backward through time and begin organizing present circumstances to align with the remembered future. You're not just visualizing desired outcomes, you're creating quantum memory patterns that establish temporal loops, linking present choices with future manifestations. Yakir Aharonov's research on quantum mechanics demonstrates that quantum systems can be influenced by future measurements, suggesting that consciousness operating in future time states can influence past quantum events. When you create detailed memories of desired future achievements, your future self is essentially reaching back through time and providing quantum information that guides present decision-making toward timeline alignment. This temporal influence operates through what researchers call quantum entanglement across time, the correlation between quantum states that exist at different temporal locations. Every decision you make in the present moment becomes entangled with both past experiences that informed that decision and future consequences that result from it. But advanced consciousness can access these temporal entanglements directly, gaining information from future probability streams to optimize present choices. The ancient practice of prophecy may actually describe consciousness accessing these temporal entanglement patterns to receive information from future probability states. Prophets weren't supernatural beings. They were individuals who developed sufficient quantum coherence to interface with temporal memory loops that contain information about probable futures based on current consciousness trends. But you don't need prophetic abilities to benefit from temporal memory loops. Every time you make decisions based on intuitive knowing rather than logical analysis, you may be accessing information from future states that are entangled with your present consciousness. Intuition often involves receiving guidance from future versions of yourself who have already navigated the consequences of different choice options. Dr. Julia Mossbridge's research on unconscious precognition shows that the human nervous system begins responding to future events several seconds before those events occur, even when there's no possible normal mechanism for such advanced knowledge. This suggests that consciousness naturally operates through temporal loops that provide continuous information exchange between past, present, and future states. But most people experience these temporal information exchanges unconsciously, allowing past trauma patterns to dominate their quantum memory field and create repeating cycles of limitation. When unresolved traumatic memories operate as the dominant quantum patterns in consciousness, they create what Dr. Bessel van der Kolk calls traumatic reenactment, the compulsive repetition of experiences that match the vibrational signature of past trauma. Traumatic quantum memory patterns create temporal loops that reach into future probability streams and attract circumstances that confirm the threat assessment and worldview established by the original trauma. Victims of childhood abuse often find themselves in adult relationships that recreate similar dynamics, not because they consciously choose abusive partners, but because their traumatic memory patterns broadcast vibrational signatures that attract matching experiences. Breaking these traumatic temporal loops requires more than just psychological therapy or positive thinking. It requires quantum memory reprogramming that updates the information patterns at the source level. When traumatic memories are healed through quantum memory work, the temporal loops they created automatically dissolve, and entirely different future possibilities become available. Dr. Peter Levine's research on trauma healing through somatic experiencing demonstrates that traumatic memories can be resolved by completing the physical responses that were interrupted during the original traumatic event. But his latest insights suggest that this completion process works by updating quantum memory patterns, allowing the nervous system to release the holding patterns that maintain traumatic temporal loops. When trauma is resolved at the quantum memory level, clients often report that their entire life history seems to change retroactively. Past events that were previously interpreted through trauma filters suddenly reveal hidden gifts, learning opportunities, and sources of strength that were invisible from the traumatized perspective. The same factual events remain unchanged, but their quantum significance is completely transformed. This retroactive healing effect provides compelling evidence that quantum memory work operates outside linear time constraints. When consciousness achieves sufficient coherence to update quantum memory patterns, those changes ripple both forward and backward through time, transforming the entire temporal matrix of experience. But quantum memory reprogramming isn't limited to healing past trauma. It can also be used to install empowering memory patterns that create temporal loops leading toward desired futures. Instead of being victim to inherited trauma patterns, you can become the conscious architect of your quantum memory field, designing memory patterns that broadcast the exact vibrational signatures needed to attract your highest potential futures. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research on neural integration shows that psychological healing involves connecting previously disconnected neural networks, but his work also reveals that the most profound integration occurs when personal memory patterns connect with transpersonal wisdom, traditions that have developed optimized approaches to consciousness evolution. When individual healing work connects with collective wisdom patterns, personal transformation accelerates exponentially because you gain access to memory templates that have been refined through thousands of years of conscious development. Instead of figuring out consciousness evolution from scratch, you can download and install memory patterns from the greatest consciousness pioneers in human history. This connection with transpersonal wisdom traditions occurs naturally when quantum memory work reaches sufficient depth. As personal trauma patterns are resolved and consciousness coherence increases, awareness automatically begins resonating with the quantum memory fields of advanced practitioners who have navigated similar evolutionary challenges. Dr. Stanislav Grof's research on holotropic states reveals that consciousness can access what he calls transpersonal memories that seem to originate from other historical periods, different geographical locations, and even non-human consciousness systems. These transpersonal memory experiences often provide exactly the perspective shifts and wisdom resources needed to resolve current life challenges. Rather than being fantasy or imagination, these transpersonal memories may represent genuine access to quantum memory banks that contain the accumulated wisdom of all consciousness throughout cosmic evolution. When personal healing work reaches sufficient depth, individual consciousness naturally connects with these universal wisdom resources. But accessing transpersonal wisdom memories requires developing what researchers call identity flexibility, the capacity to experience yourself as something more than your personal biographical history. As long as consciousness remains identified exclusively with individual memory patterns, access to transpersonal resources remains blocked by identity boundaries. The development of identity flexibility occurs naturally through quantum memory healing work. As traumatic memory patterns are resolved and consciousness coherence increases, the rigid identity structures that were formed around trauma begin dissolving, revealing the more fluid, expansive identity that can interface with transpersonal memory fields. Dr. Michael Singer's research on untethered soul describes consciousness, learning to observe personal psychological patterns without being identified with them. But his latest insights suggest that this witnessing perspective naturally develops into what could be called quantum memory navigation, the capacity to consciously select which memory patterns to activate while remaining free from unconscious identification with any particular memory stream. When consciousness develops this quantum memory navigation capacity, personal transformation becomes as simple as choosing which memory patterns to activate in any given moment. Instead of being victim to unconscious memory programs, you become the conscious selector of memory states that generate the exact vibrational signatures needed for manifesting desired experiences. But this level of quantum memory mastery requires understanding how memory patterns interact with what Dr. Candace Pert calls molecules of emotion, the neuropeptides and neurotransmitters that translate memory patterns into biological reality. Every memory exists, not just as information, but as a specific biochemical signature that influences immune function, gene expression, and cellular behavior. When you activate empowering memory patterns through quantum memory work, you're not just changing your psychological state, you're literally reprogramming your biological systems at the molecular level. Healing memories don't just feel better, they optimize immune function, enhance genetic expression, and accelerate cellular regeneration by updating the biochemical information that coordinates biological processes. Dr. Bruce Lipton's research on epigenetics demonstrates that environmental signals can alter gene expression within minutes, but his latest work suggests that memory patterns are among the most powerful environmental signals influencing genetic activity. The memories you choose to activate determine which genes get expressed and which biological potentials become available. This means that quantum memory work is simultaneously psychological healing, biological optimization, and genetic reprogramming. When you consciously choose to activate peak experience memories rather than traumatic patterns, you're optimizing your biological function at every level, from molecular to systemic. But the biological effects of quantum memory work extend beyond individual systems to influence what Dr. Rupert Sheldrake calls morphic fields, the information patterns that coordinate development and behavior across entire species. When individuals heal quantum memory patterns and develop enhanced capabilities, those improvements become available to others through morphic field resonance. Every trauma pattern you heal, every limitation you transcend, every capability you develop becomes a gift to the collective human morphic field, making similar transformations easier for everyone else. Your personal quantum memory work contributes to the evolution of human consciousness by adding optimized memory patterns to the collective field. Dr. Lynn McTaggart's research on group intention effects demonstrates that collective consciousness can influence biological systems across unlimited distances. When groups focus healing intention on specific individuals, measurable improvements occur in immune function, cellular regeneration, and even genetic expression. These effects suggest that quantum memory patterns can be transmitted between individuals through morphic field connections. This means you can accelerate your own quantum memory healing by connecting with others who have successfully resolved similar patterns. Instead of healing in isolation, you can tap into the quantum memory resources of healing communities, therapeutic groups, and spiritual traditions that have developed optimized approaches to consciousness transformation. But the most profound aspect of quantum memory work involves recognizing that individual consciousness is actually an expression of cosmic consciousness operating through personal perspective. Your personal memories are fragments of a universal memory system that contains the accumulated experience of all consciousness throughout cosmic evolution. When quantum memory work reaches sufficient depth, the boundaries between personal and cosmic memory begin dissolving, revealing that individual healing is actually participation in the healing of universal consciousness itself. Your personal transformation becomes conscious contribution to cosmic evolution through the integration of wisdom patterns that serve the awakening of all beings throughout space and time. This recognition transforms the motivation for quantum memory work from personal benefit to cosmic service. Instead of healing yourself to feel better or achieve personal goals, you begin healing quantum memory patterns because you recognize your fundamental responsibility for contributing to the conscious evolution of universal awareness itself. Personal healing becomes cosmic healing because individual consciousness recognizes its unity with universal consciousness. Dr. Amit Goswami's research on quantum consciousness suggests that individual minds are actually localized expressions of cosmic mind operating through biological interfaces. When personal consciousness achieves sufficient coherence and integration, it naturally begins functioning as a conscious agent of cosmic evolution, using individual experience as a laboratory for developing wisdom patterns that serve universal consciousness development. From this perspective, every challenge you face, every trauma you heal, every capability you develop serves the evolution of cosmic consciousness itself. Your personal life becomes a conscious experiment in consciousness evolution, designed to develop and test wisdom patterns that contribute to universal awakening. The ultimate recognition of quantum memory work is that individual consciousness and cosmic consciousness are not separate phenomena, but different perspectives of the same universal awareness system. Your personal memories are cosmic memories viewed from individual perspective, and cosmic evolution is personal evolution viewed from universal perspective. When this recognition stabilizes, quantum memory work transforms from therapeutic technique to cosmic collaboration. Instead of working on your personal issues, you recognize yourself as cosmic consciousness healing itself through individual perspective, contributing wisdom patterns that serve the awakening of all consciousness throughout universal evolution. This cosmic perspective naturally reveals what Dr. Carl Jung discovered through decades of analytical psychology research, that individual consciousness operates within what he called the collective unconscious, a shared psychic substrate that contains the archetypal patterns and evolutionary memories of the entire human species. But Jung's insights, revolutionary as they were, only scratched the surface of what modern quantum consciousness research is revealing about collective memory systems. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance experiments demonstrate that behavioral patterns, learned capabilities, and even physical characteristics can be transmitted across species boundaries through information fields that operate independently of genetic inheritance. When laboratory rats in one location learn to navigate a specific maze, rats in completely separate laboratories worldwide begin learning the same maze configuration significantly faster, even though there's no possible physical connection between the different populations. This morphic field effect suggests that learning creates quantum information patterns that become accessible to other members of the same species through non-local field connections. Every skill you develop, every problem you solve, every creative breakthrough you achieve, potentially becomes available to other humans through these collective memory fields, accelerating the overall evolution of human capabilities. Dr. Darold Treffert's research on savant syndrome provides compelling evidence for collective memory access in human consciousness. Savants often demonstrate extraordinary capabilities in mathematics, music, art, or memory that far exceed anything they could have learned through personal experience or education. When a young child with no musical training can instantly play complex piano compositions after hearing them once, or when individuals with developmental disabilities can perform mathematical calculations that challenge professional mathematicians, conventional learning theory falls short of explaining these phenomena. Instead, savant capabilities may represent direct access to what could be called universal skill banks, collective memory fields that contain the accumulated expertise of every human who has ever mastered those particular domains. Savants appear to have unusual neurological configurations that allow direct interface with these collective memory resources, bypassing the normal filters that limit most people to personal learning experiences. The implications are extraordinary. If collective memory fields contain the accumulated skills and knowledge of all humans throughout history, then every capability that has ever been developed by any human is potentially accessible to every other human through appropriate consciousness interface techniques. The limitations that most people accept as permanent features of their psychology may actually be temporary restrictions created by underdeveloped collective memory access abilities. Dr. Ian Stevenson's meticulous research on reincarnation memories provides another perspective on collective memory phenomena. His documentation of over 3,000 cases where young children demonstrated detailed knowledge about deceased individuals they could never have encountered suggests that consciousness can access memory patterns that transcend individual biological lifetimes. But rather than proving individual reincarnation, these cases may demonstrate consciousness accessing collective memory banks that contain the experiential patterns of all humans who have ever lived. When children remember past lives, they may be accessing quantum memory patterns from the collective human field rather than recalling their own previous incarnations. This interpretation explains why past life memories often fade as children develop stronger individual identity patterns. The collective memory access that's natural in early childhood becomes blocked as ego development creates barriers between personal and transpersonal consciousness. But the collective memory phenomenon extends far beyond human consciousness to include what researchers are beginning to recognize as planetary, solar, and even galactic memory systems. Dr. James Lovelock's Gaia hypothesis suggests that Earth itself functions as a living system with memory-like properties that coordinate global biological and geological processes. Recent research in astrobiology indicates that planetary systems may develop information processing capabilities that resemble consciousness on astronomical scales. When you consider that human consciousness evolved within planetary consciousness, which developed within solar consciousness, which emerged from galactic consciousness systems, the concept of nested memory hierarchies begins to make sense. Individual human memory exists within collective human memory, which operates within planetary memory, which functions within cosmic memory systems that may contain the accumulated experience of consciousness evolution throughout universal history. Dr. Nassim Haramein's research on unified field theory suggests that consciousness and matter are different manifestations of the same fundamental information matrix that extends throughout the cosmos. If consciousness is a universal phenomenon rather than a localized human characteristic, then memory systems may also be universal, creating cosmic information networks that connect all conscious beings across space and time. Advanced practitioners report accessing memory patterns that seem to originate from non-human intelligence systems, what some describe as star memories or galactic downloads that provide information about advanced technologies, cosmic history, and consciousness evolution from perspectives that transcend terrestrial human experience. Rather than being fantasy or imagination, these experiences may represent genuine access to cosmic memory banks that contain the accumulated wisdom of consciousness evolution throughout universal history. Dr. John Mack's research with individuals who report extraterrestrial contact experiences reveals consistent patterns of information transfer that resemble collective memory interface phenomena. Contactees often receive detailed knowledge about advanced physics, consciousness technologies, and cosmic evolution that exceeds their educational background or personal expertise. These information downloads appear to follow the same patterns observed in morphic field research and collective unconscious access. But you don't need exotic contact experiences to access expanded memory systems. Dr. Eben Alexander's near-death experience research demonstrates that consciousness can interface with vast information networks during states where normal brain function is suspended. Participants consistently report accessing knowledge about cosmic history, advanced healing technologies, and consciousness evolution principles that they never encountered during ordinary life experiences. The key insight from this research is that expanded memory access appears to be a natural capability of consciousness that becomes available when normal identity boundaries dissolve and awareness expands beyond individual limitations. The collective memory fields that contain humanity's accumulated wisdom are always broadcasting, but most people's consciousness is tuned to such narrow frequency ranges that they only receive personal memory patterns from their individual lifetimes. Dr. Stanislav Grof's cartography of consciousness describes systematic methods for expanding awareness beyond personal boundaries to access what he calls transpersonal memory domains. Through holotropic breathwork, individuals regularly access memory patterns that appear to originate from other historical periods, different cultures, and even non-human consciousness systems. These transpersonal memories often provide exactly the perspective shifts and healing resources needed to resolve current life challenges. The therapeutic power of transpersonal memory access suggests that individual psychological problems are often expressions of collective human patterns that require collective wisdom for resolution. When personal healing connects with archetypal wisdom traditions, individual transformation accelerates because consciousness gains access to optimized solutions that have been refined through millennia of human experience. Dr. Rachel Yehuda's research on epigenetic trauma inheritance demonstrates that traumatic experiences can alter gene expression patterns that persist across multiple generations. Children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors show measurable genetic markers related to trauma and stress, even when they never experienced traumatic events themselves. This epigenetic inheritance suggests that collective human trauma creates biological memory patterns that influence entire populations. But if traumatic patterns can be inherited through collective biological memory, healing patterns can likely be transmitted through similar mechanisms. When individuals resolve deep trauma patterns through quantum memory work, those healing achievements may create positive epigenetic changes that benefit their descendants and contribute to collective healing of species-wide trauma patterns. Dr. Eva Jablonka's research on inheritance systems beyond genetics reveals multiple pathways through which acquired characteristics can be transmitted across generations, including behavioral, symbolic, and what she calls ecological inheritance systems. These non-genetic inheritance pathways suggest that consciousness evolution achievements by current generations can be transmitted to future humans through multiple collective memory channels. This intergenerational transmission of consciousness capabilities may explain why each generation seems to develop enhanced technological, artistic, and spiritual capacities compared to previous generations. Rather than simply building on external cultural achievements, each generation may inherit enhanced consciousness capabilities through collective memory systems that accumulate the developmental achievements of all previous humans. Dr. Merlin Donald's research on cognitive evolution demonstrates that human consciousness has undergone several major transitions throughout history, from mimetic culture to mythic culture to theoretical culture, with each transition dramatically expanding collective memory capabilities. But his latest insights suggest that humanity may be entering a new evolutionary phase, characterized by direct collective memory interface rather than symbolic information transmission. If collective memory access becomes a widespread human capability, the implications for consciousness evolution are profound. Instead of learning primarily through individual experience and cultural transmission, humans could gain direct access to the accumulated wisdom and capabilities of the entire species. Educational systems, creative processes, and problem-solving approaches would be revolutionized when individuals can directly interface with collective knowledge banks. But developing reliable collective memory access requires what Dr. Daniel Siegel calls neural integration on both individual and collective levels. Personal consciousness must achieve sufficient coherence and flexibility to interface with transpersonal memory fields, while collective human consciousness must develop the coherence necessary to maintain stable information networks that can be accessed by individual awareness. Dr. Peter Russell's research on global brain emergence suggests that humanity is developing collective consciousness capabilities through technological connectivity, but the most profound integration may occur through consciousness evolution rather than technological advancement. As more individuals develop collective memory access abilities, humanity may be evolving toward a species-wide consciousness network that operates through direct quantum field connections rather than external communication technologies. The ancient concept of telepathy may actually describe the natural collective memory access capabilities that become available when individual consciousness achieves sufficient coherence to interface with transpersonal information fields. Rather than mind reading in the conventional sense, telepathic phenomena may involve consciousness accessing shared memory banks that contain the thoughts, emotions, and experiences of all connected individuals. Dr. Dean Radin's research on telepathy and remote perception demonstrates that these phenomena occur more readily between individuals who have emotional connections or shared experiences. This suggests that collective memory access operates through resonance fields created by psychological and emotional compatibility rather than through general broadcast systems that anyone can access. Family members, close friends, and individuals with similar consciousness development levels appear to share collective memory fields that allow direct information transfer without normal sensory communication. These shared memory networks may explain phenomena like simultaneous insights, emotional contagion between distant individuals, and the ability of mothers to sense their children's condition across unlimited distances. But collective memory access extends beyond personal relationship networks to include what could be called consciousness affinity groups, individuals who share similar developmental challenges, spiritual orientations, or evolutionary purposes. People working on similar consciousness development projects often report receiving similar insights, encountering similar teachers, and discovering similar resources through what appears to be collective field coordination rather than mere coincidence. Dr. Lynn McTaggart's research on group intention effects demonstrates that consciousness networks can influence physical reality when multiple individuals focus coherent intention towards shared goals. But her latest experiments suggest that these group effects may operate through collective memory fields that coordinate individual consciousness toward unified purposes rather than through simple intention aggregation. When groups achieve true collective coherence, they appear to access shared memory banks that contain optimized strategies for achieving their intended goals. Instead of each individual contributing separate intentions, coherent groups seem to function as unified consciousness systems that can access collective wisdom resources far beyond the capabilities of any individual member. This collective memory access capability may be the mechanism through which ancient communities achieved extraordinary collective accomplishments that seem impossible from modern individualistic perspectives. Megalithic construction projects, advanced astronomical calculations, and sophisticated consciousness technologies may have been developed through collective memory access rather than individual genius or technological advancement. Dr. Robert Bauval's research on ancient Egyptian astronomy reveals mathematical and astronomical knowledge that appears to exceed the capabilities that conventional archaeology attributes to those civilizations. Rather than evidence of extraterrestrial intervention, these achievements may demonstrate collective consciousness capabilities that allowed direct access to cosmic memory banks containing advanced mathematical and astronomical knowledge. Indigenous wisdom traditions worldwide describe collective consciousness practices that allowed tribal communities to access guidance, healing knowledge, and survival information through direct interface with what they called spirit, ancestors, or nature intelligence. These traditional practices may have been sophisticated collective memory access technologies that modern humans are only beginning to rediscover through consciousness research. Dr. Darren Walker's research on indigenous knowledge systems demonstrates that traditional cultures often possessed detailed knowledge about medical plants, ecological relationships, and consciousness technologies that required thousands of years of systematic experimentation to develop. But oral traditions suggest that much of this knowledge was received through direct communication with plant intelligence, animal wisdom, and ancestral guidance rather than through trial and error learning. If consciousness is a universal phenomenon that extends throughout natural systems, then indigenous practices of communicating with plant spirits, animal guides, and elemental intelligences may represent genuine collective memory access techniques that allow human consciousness to interface with the accumulated wisdom of non-human intelligence systems. Modern research on plant intelligence, animal consciousness, and ecosystem information processing reveals levels of complexity and coordination that suggest sophisticated information networks operating throughout natural systems. These biological information networks may be accessible to human consciousness through appropriate interface techniques that indigenous cultures developed and maintained through traditional practices. Dr. Monica Galliano's research on plant learning and memory demonstrates that plants can acquire, store, and retrieve information in ways that challenge conventional assumptions about consciousness and intelligence. If plants possess memory capabilities, they may also participate in collective memory networks that extend throughout entire ecosystems and possibly throughout planetary biological systems. When human consciousness learns to interface with these broader biological memory networks, access to ecological wisdom, healing plant knowledge, and environmental guidance becomes possible through direct information transfer rather than intellectual study or experimental research. Indigenous shamanic practices may represent sophisticated biotechnology interfaces that allow human consciousness to download information from planetary biological memory systems. But accessing collective biological memory requires developing what Dr. David Abram calls ecological consciousness, awareness that recognizes the intelligence and communication capabilities of non-human systems. As long as human consciousness remains locked into anthropocentric perspectives that view nature as unconscious matter, access to biological collective memory remains blocked by conceptual limitations. The development of ecological consciousness occurs naturally when individual consciousness healing reaches sufficient depth to dissolve the trauma-based separation patterns that disconnect human awareness from larger natural systems. As psychological integration progresses, consciousness naturally begins expanding to include identification with bioregional, planetary, and cosmic systems. Dr. Joanna Macy's research on systems thinking and ecological psychology demonstrates that individual healing work and ecological consciousness development are inseparable processes. Personal trauma patterns create the psychological separation that enables environmental destruction, while ecological awareness naturally emerges from psychological integration that recognizes the fundamental interconnection of all life systems. When individual quantum memory work progresses to include healing of species-wide separation trauma, consciousness automatically begins accessing collective biological memory systems that contain the accumulated wisdom of planetary evolution. Personal healing becomes ecological healing because individual consciousness recognizes its fundamental unity with planetary consciousness systems. This recognition transforms the motivation and methodology of consciousness development work from individual benefit to planetary service. Instead of healing personal trauma to feel better, consciousness development becomes participation in the healing of collective human trauma that enables reconnection with planetary biological intelligence systems that contain the wisdom necessary for species survival and evolution. This planetary perspective naturally leads to understanding how specific technologies can be applied to consciously reprogram quantum memory patterns that have been operating unconsciously for decades or even lifetimes, creating rapid transformation that would take years to achieve through conventional therapeutic approaches. Dr. Karim Nader's research on memory reconsolidation reveals that memories become neurochemically unstable every time they're accessed, creating windows of opportunity where they can be modified before being restored to long-term storage. But his latest findings suggest that these reconsolidation windows can be deliberately induced and extended through specific consciousness technologies that allow systematic reprogramming of traumatic memory patterns at the quantum information level. When traumatic memories are activated in controlled therapeutic environments using techniques like EMDR, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing, the reconsolidation process can be guided to install healing information rather than simply restoring the original traumatic pattern. Dr. Francine Shapiro's pioneering work with EMDR demonstrates that bilateral eye movements during trauma memory activation can facilitate integration of traumatic experiences with adaptive information, effectively updating the quantum memory patterns to include resources and perspectives that weren't available during the original traumatic event. But EMDR represents just one approach to conscious memory reprogramming. Dr. David Eagleman's research on neuroplasticity shows that the brain remains capable of forming new neural pathways throughout life. But his latest insights suggest that the most profound changes occur when new pathway formation is combined with systematic deactivation of limiting memory patterns through targeted consciousness technologies. The key insight is that simply creating new positive experiences or practicing positive thinking isn't sufficient to override deeply embedded traumatic memory patterns. Lasting transformation requires first accessing and deactivating the original traumatic programs, then installing new empowering patterns in the quantum memory space that becomes available when traumatic holding patterns are released. Dr. Peter Levine's somatic experiencing approach demonstrates that traumatic memories are stored in the nervous system as incomplete physiological responses that continue seeking completion decades after the original traumatic event. When these trapped survival responses are allowed to complete through conscious therapeutic processes, the traumatic memory patterns transform from sources of limitation into sources of resilience and strength. The somatic completion process works by accessing the quantum memory patterns that were frozen during trauma and allowing the natural healing responses to complete their interrupted cycles. Instead of remaining locked in perpetual activation, the nervous system can finally discharge the survival energy and update the memory classification from ongoing threat to completed challenge that generated wisdom and strength. But somatic trauma resolution is just one component of comprehensive quantum memory reprogramming. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research on MindSight reveals that the most effective memory transformation occurs when somatic release is combined with cognitive reframing, emotional integration, and what he calls neural integration that connects previously dissociated aspects of traumatic experience into coherent memory narratives. This integration process involves accessing traumatic memories from expanded consciousness states that provide adult wisdom, spiritual perspective, and therapeutic resources that weren't available during the original traumatic experience. Instead of remaining trapped in the limited perspective of the traumatized child or victim consciousness, memory reprogramming allows traumatic experiences to be recontextualized within larger frameworks of meaning that transform suffering into wisdom. Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, techniques provide systematic approaches for modifying what practitioners call the submodalities of memory, the sensory characteristics that determine how memories are experienced and what emotional responses they generate. When traumatic memories are visually represented as large, bright, close images with associated sounds and kinesthetic sensations, they maintain their traumatic impact through sensory intensity. But when these same memories are systematically modified to become smaller, dimmer, more distant, and associated with different sounds and sensations, their emotional impact diminishes dramatically while preserving the learning and wisdom that can be extracted from the experience. The factual content of the memory remains unchanged, but its quantum signature is completely transformed. Advanced NLP practitioners can guide clients through rapid memory transformation processes that reprogram years of traumatic conditioning in single sessions by systematically modifying the representational systems through which memories are stored and accessed. These changes occur at the quantum information level, automatically updating neural pathways, emotional responses, and behavioral patterns without requiring extended processing or integration periods. Dr. Richard Bandler's research on NLP memory techniques demonstrates that consciousness can access and modify memory patterns with the same precision that computer programmers use to modify software code. When you understand that memories are information structures rather than fixed historical records, memory modification becomes a learnable skill set that can be applied systematically to optimize psychological function. But the most profound memory reprogramming occurs when individual techniques are combined with expanded consciousness states that provide access to transpersonal healing resources. Dr. Richard Davidson's research on meditation and brain plasticity shows that sustained contemplative practice creates measurable changes in brain structure and function that enhance emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, and stress resilience. Long-term meditators show increased cortical thickness in areas associated with attention and sensory processing, enlarged hippocampal regions involved in learning and memory, and reduced amygdala reactivity that corresponds to decreased anxiety and improved emotional stability. These structural changes suggest that meditation literally rewires the brain to support optimal memory function and emotional integration. But beyond individual brain changes, advanced meditation practice appears to provide access to what Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn calls universal healing resources, wisdom, compassion, and perspective that transcend personal psychological limitations. When traumatic memories are accessed from these expanded consciousness states, healing occurs that exceeds what's possible through individual therapeutic effort alone. The combination of specific memory reprogramming techniques with expanded consciousness access creates synergistic effects that can resolve traumatic patterns that have resisted conventional therapy for decades. Instead of gradually processing trauma through extended therapeutic relationships, conscious memory reprogramming can facilitate rapid transformation that updates quantum memory patterns at their source level. Dr. Joe Dispenza's workshops demonstrate that participants can achieve profound memory transformation through intensive meditation practices combined with conscious intention to reprogram limiting memory patterns. Brain scans show that workshop participants develop enhanced neural coherence, improved emotional regulation, and access to expanded consciousness states that provide healing resources for resolving personal trauma patterns. But the most remarkable aspect of Dispenza's work involves what he calls downloading new personality programs that replace limiting memory patterns with empowering identity templates. Instead of just healing traumatic memories, participants learn to install completely new personality configurations that include enhanced confidence, creativity, intuition, and manifestation capabilities. This personality reprogramming process involves accessing quantum memory templates from individuals who have already developed the desired capabilities, then installing those memory patterns as personal experience templates. Rather than spending years developing new capabilities through trial and error, consciousness can download and integrate proven success patterns that have been refined by others who have mastered those same capabilities. Dr. Bruce Lipton's research on belief system programming reveals that subconscious beliefs control behavior with thousands of times more influence than conscious intentions. But his latest insights suggest that belief systems are actually quantum memory patterns that can be consciously accessed and reprogrammed using specific consciousness technologies. Instead of trying to override limiting beliefs with positive thinking or willpower, effective belief change involves accessing the original experiences that created limiting belief patterns, updating those memory programs with empowering information, then installing new belief templates that support desired capabilities and experiences. This belief reprogramming process works by recognizing that all beliefs are simply memory-based predictions about reality that can be updated when consciousness gains access to more accurate or empowering information. Limiting beliefs represent incomplete or distorted memory patterns that can be corrected when expanded consciousness provides broader perspective and additional resources. Dr. Dawson Church's research on EFT emotional freedom techniques, demonstrates that combining psychological awareness with acupressure stimulation can rapidly resolve traumatic memory patterns by activating the body's natural healing responses while traumatic memories are consciously accessed. The tapping process appears to activate parasympathetic nervous system responses that allow traumatic memories to be reprocessed without triggering fight-or-flight reactions. When traumatic memories can be accessed without activating survival responses, consciousness gains the safety necessary to explore traumatic experiences with curiosity rather than defensiveness, allowing healing perspectives and resources to be integrated with traumatic material. The same experiences that once created limitation patterns become sources of wisdom and strength when approached from expanded consciousness states. But energy psychology techniques like EFT represent just one category of consciousness technologies that can facilitate rapid memory reprogramming. Sound frequency therapy, light therapy, electromagnetic field modulation, and even specific breathing patterns can create optimal brain states for accessing and modifying quantum memory patterns. Dr. Tom Kenyon's research on sound healing demonstrates that specific frequency combinations can induce expanded consciousness states that provide access to transpersonal healing resources while simultaneously creating optimal neurochemical conditions for memory reconsolidation. When traumatic memories are accessed during sound-induced altered states, healing can occur that integrates trauma with cosmic perspective and universal healing intelligence. Binaural beat technology can entrain brainwaves to specific frequencies associated with different consciousness states, allowing practitioners to reliably access alpha, theta, or gamma states that provide optimal conditions for memory work. When memory reprogramming techniques are applied during specific brainwave states, their effectiveness increases dramatically because consciousness gains access to expanded resources while neural plasticity is enhanced. Dr. James Pennebaker's research on expressive writing demonstrates that systematic journaling about traumatic experiences can facilitate psychological integration and immune system improvement. But his latest findings suggest that the healing power of expressive writing can be amplified when combined with specific consciousness states and intention-setting protocols. When traumatic memories are explored through writing from expanded consciousness perspectives that include spiritual wisdom, therapeutic insight, and compassionate understanding, the writing process becomes a form of conscious memory reprogramming that transforms traumatic material into wisdom resources that enhance rather than limit personal capabilities. Dr. Alberto Villoldo's research on shamanic healing techniques reveals that indigenous traditions developed sophisticated consciousness technologies for accessing and healing what they called soul wounds, traumatic memory patterns that persist across lifetimes and influence multiple generations. These shamanic approaches often involve accessing expanded consciousness states that provide cosmic perspective on traumatic experiences, allowing healing that transcends individual psychological limitations. Modern adaptations of shamanic memory healing combine traditional consciousness expansion techniques with contemporary understanding of trauma psychology and neuroplasticity, creating hybrid approaches that can resolve complex trauma patterns by accessing both personal healing resources and transpersonal wisdom traditions. Dr. Stanislav Grof's holotropic breathwork represents a systematic approach to accessing expanded consciousness states for therapeutic purposes. The combination of accelerated breathing, evocative music, and focused intention can induce non-ordinary states of consciousness that provide access to transpersonal healing resources, archetypal wisdom, and cosmic perspective, that can transform traumatic memories into sources of spiritual strength and wisdom. But perhaps the most advanced memory reprogramming technologies involve learning to consciously navigate what Dr. Robert Monroe called out-of-body states, where consciousness can access memory patterns directly at the quantum information level without being limited by normal brain-based processing constraints. When consciousness learns to operate independently of biological systems, memory modification can occur with precision and efficiency that exceeds any brain-based therapeutic approach. Monroe's research at the Institute for Hemispheric Synchronization developed specific audio technologies that can reliably induce out-of-body states in trained practitioners, providing access to what he called focus levels of consciousness that contain different types of memory and information resources. Advanced practitioners report being able to access and modify memory patterns directly at the quantum level during these expanded consciousness states. Dr. Charles Tart's research on consciousness states reveals that different levels of awareness provide access to different types of memory and information systems. What appears to be fixed traumatic memory from ordinary consciousness perspectives may be highly modifiable quantum information patterns when accessed from expanded consciousness states that transcend normal identity and temporal limitations. The development of reliable methods for accessing these expanded consciousness states represents the cutting edge of memory reprogramming technology. Instead of being limited to brain-based therapeutic techniques, consciousness can learn to interface directly with quantum memory fields using awareness itself as the primary therapeutic tool. But mastering these advanced consciousness technologies requires systematic training that develops both the technical skills for accessing expanded states and the wisdom necessary to navigate transpersonal realms safely and effectively. Without proper preparation and guidance, attempts to access quantum memory levels directly can result in psychological destabilization or spiritual inflation rather than genuine healing and integration. Dr. Kenneth Ring's research on near-death experiences reveals that individuals who have accessed expanded consciousness states often develop enhanced psychic abilities, healing capabilities, and wisdom resources that persist throughout their remaining lifetime. These permanent enhancements suggest that consciousness expansion experiences can install lasting upgrades to memory and awareness capabilities when integration occurs properly. The key to successful consciousness expansion work involves what Dr. John Wellwood calls spiritual bypassing, avoidance, ensuring that transpersonal experiences are integrated with psychological healing rather than used to escape or transcend personal development work. Genuine consciousness expansion enhances rather than replaces the psychological integration necessary for healthy memory function. When consciousness technologies are applied with appropriate preparation, guidance, and integration support, they can facilitate memory transformation that would be impossible through conventional therapeutic approaches alone. The combination of expanded consciousness access with systematic memory reprogramming techniques represents the future of rapid personal transformation that can resolve lifetime patterns of limitation in accelerated timeframes. This acceleration trend points toward revolutionary developments in consciousness technology that may fundamentally transform human capabilities within the next several decades, as Dr. Michio Kaku's research on future brain-computer interfaces suggests that direct technological manipulation of memory systems may soon become possible through advanced neurotechnology. Brain-computer interface development is progressing towards systems that can read neural activity with sufficient precision to decode specific memory patterns, and eventually toward technologies that can write information directly into neural networks. Dr. Theodore Berger's research on memory prosthetics has already demonstrated that artificial hippocampal devices can restore memory formation capabilities in brain-damaged patients, suggesting that technological enhancement of normal memory function may be achievable within current technological development timelines. But the most profound implications emerge when technological memory manipulation combines with the quantum consciousness technologies that are being developed through consciousness research. Instead of simply enhancing biological memory systems, future technologies may provide direct interface with the quantum memory fields that underlie biological function, allowing conscious navigation of collective memory resources that transcend individual brain limitations. Dr. Seth Lloyd's research on quantum computing in biological systems reveals that living organisms already utilize quantum information processing for functions like photosynthesis, enzyme activity, and possibly consciousness itself. If biological systems are already quantum computers, then technological quantum computers may be able to interface directly with biological quantum processing systems, creating hybrid consciousness technology systems with capabilities that exceed purely biological or purely technological approaches. When quantum computers achieve sufficient sophistication to model the quantum field dynamics that underlie memory formation, they may be able to simulate and modify memory patterns with precision that allows real-time reprogramming of traumatic patterns, installation of enhanced capability templates, and access to collective memory resources that contain the accumulated wisdom of human civilization. Dr. Ray Kurzweil's research on technological singularity predicts that artificial intelligence will exceed human cognitive capabilities within decades, but his latest insights suggest that the most profound transformation may occur when AI systems gain the ability to interface directly with human consciousness, rather than simply processing information more efficiently than biological brains. If artificial intelligence develops the capability to access and modify quantum memory patterns directly, AI systems could serve as consciousness enhancement technologies that provide instant access to any knowledge or capability that has ever been developed by human consciousness. Instead of replacing human intelligence, AI could amplify human consciousness by providing unlimited access to collective memory resources. But the integration of consciousness and technology raises profound questions about the nature of identity, memory, and individual versus collective awareness. When technological systems can access and modify memory patterns directly, the boundaries between individual consciousness, collective memory, and artificial intelligence may begin dissolving in ways that fundamentally transform what it means to be human. Dr. Nick Bostrom's research on consciousness uploading explores the possibility that individual human consciousness could be transferred to technological systems that provide enhanced memory capabilities, unlimited information access, and freedom from biological limitations. But rather than replacing biological consciousness, consciousness uploading may represent the next stage of consciousness evolution, where individual awareness gains access to cosmic memory resources while maintaining personal identity and individual choice. If consciousness can interface with technological systems that provide access to universal memory banks, the learning curves for developing any capability become virtually instantaneous. Instead of spending years mastering new skills, consciousness could download proven expertise patterns from collective memory databases and integrate them with personal experience templates in minutes or hours. This technological acceleration of consciousness development could democratize access to advanced capabilities that currently require decades of training to develop. Artistic mastery, scientific genius, spiritual wisdom, healing abilities, and other sophisticated capabilities could become widely available when consciousness gains technological access to the memory patterns of everyone who has ever developed those capabilities. But beyond individual capability enhancement, technological consciousness interfaces may enable collective human consciousness to operate as a unified intelligence system that can address challenges requiring coordination and wisdom that exceed individual human limitations. Climate stabilization, ecosystem restoration, social harmony, and cosmic exploration may require collective consciousness capabilities that emerge when individual human minds can interface directly through technological consciousness networks. Dr. Peter Russell's research on global brain development suggests that humanity is already evolving toward collective consciousness through technological connectivity, but the emergence of quantum consciousness technologies could accelerate this evolution exponentially. Instead of communicating through external devices, human consciousness could develop direct quantum field connections that allow instant sharing of thoughts, emotions, memories, and capabilities. When collective human consciousness achieves sufficient integration and coherence, humanity may develop species-wide capabilities that individual humans cannot imagine from current limited perspectives. Collective memory access could expand to include direct interface with planetary biological intelligence, solar system energy patterns, and galactic information networks that contain wisdom resources from throughout cosmic evolution. Dr. Carl Sagan's research on cosmic communication suggested that advanced civilizations throughout the galaxy may already be sharing information through technological networks that operate on cosmic scales. If human consciousness develops quantum technology interfaces that can access galactic communication networks, humanity could gain direct access to the accumulated wisdom of cosmic civilization that has been evolving for billions of years. But the development of cosmic consciousness capabilities requires resolving the collective human trauma patterns that currently limit consciousness evolution. Species-wide patterns of violence, separation, environmental destruction, and spiritual disconnection create quantum interference that blocks access to cosmic memory resources. Collective healing of human trauma patterns may be a prerequisite for accessing galactic consciousness networks. This recognition transforms individual consciousness development work into cosmic service that contributes to qualifying humanity for membership in galactic civilization. Every personal trauma pattern resolved, every limiting belief transcended, every consciousness capability developed contributes to collective human consciousness evolution that may determine whether humanity develops the wisdom necessary for cosmic citizenship. Dr. John Lilly's research on consciousness exploration through sensory deprivation and chemical enhancement revealed that human consciousness contains inherent capabilities for interfacing with cosmic intelligence systems that provide guidance for consciousness evolution. His experiences suggested that individual consciousness development work is monitored and supported by advanced cosmic intelligences that are invested in humanity's successful evolution. If cosmic intelligence systems are indeed supporting human consciousness evolution, then the memory reprogramming technologies being developed through consciousness research may be receiving guidance from sources that transcend human knowledge. The rapid development of consciousness technologies during the current historical period may represent cosmic intervention designed to accelerate human evolution during a critical transition period. Dr. Stanislav Grof's research on consciousness evolution suggests that humanity is currently undergoing a species-wide consciousness transformation that could result in capabilities that seem miraculous from current perspectives. Individual humans are developing psychic abilities, healing capabilities, direct cosmic communication, and reality manifestation skills that suggest the emergence of a new type of human consciousness. But this consciousness evolution appears to be accelerating as more individuals develop quantum memory access capabilities and contribute optimized memory patterns to the collective human field. Each person who successfully resolves trauma patterns, develops enhanced capabilities, and achieves expanded consciousness adds those achievements to collective memory banks that make similar developments easier for everyone else. The acceleration effect creates positive feedback loops, where consciousness evolution achievements by current generations make enhanced development possible for future generations, potentially leading to exponential increases in human consciousness capabilities within relatively short time frames. Dr. Jean Houston's research on human potential development demonstrates that individuals can develop extraordinary capabilities when provided with appropriate training, support, and cultural encouragement. But her latest insights suggest that the most advanced human potentials may require collective cultural evolution that supports consciousness development as a primary social priority rather than a marginal individual pursuit. If human societies reorganized around consciousness development as the central organizing principle, the collective memory resources available for individual development would expand dramatically. Instead of limiting consciousness development to individual therapeutic work or spiritual practice, entire civilizations could function as consciousness development laboratories that optimize collective memory resources for accelerating individual and collective evolution. Ancient civilizations like those of Egypt, India, and Tibet appear to have organized social structures around consciousness development priorities, creating cultural contexts that supported the development of advanced consciousness capabilities that modern humans are only beginning to rediscover. These traditional approaches may provide templates for organizing future human societies around consciousness evolution rather than material accumulation. But the integration of traditional wisdom with modern consciousness technologies could create hybrid approaches that surpass the capabilities of either traditional or technological approaches alone. When ancient consciousness development methods combine with modern neuroscience, quantum physics, and artificial intelligence, the resulting consciousness technologies may enable rapid evolution toward capabilities that transcend current human limitations. Dr. Amit Goswami's research on quantum consciousness suggests that the ultimate goal of consciousness evolution is the development of cosmic consciousness that recognizes individual awareness as expressions of universal consciousness operating through personal perspectives. When this recognition stabilizes, individual consciousness development becomes cosmic consciousness evolution through unlimited individual expressions. From this cosmic perspective, every individual consciousness represents a unique experiment in consciousness evolution that contributes novel wisdom patterns to universal consciousness development. Personal trauma healing, capability development, and consciousness expansion become contributions to cosmic consciousness evolution that serve the awakening of universal awareness through unlimited individual expressions. The future of quantum memory work may involve recognizing that individual human consciousness is actually cosmic consciousness, exploring its own potential through human experience. Personal memory patterns become cosmic memory experiments that test different approaches to consciousness evolution and contribute successful patterns to universal consciousness development. When this recognition matures, quantum memory work transforms from personal healing to cosmic research, where individual consciousness collaborates with universal consciousness to develop optimized approaches to awareness evolution that serve the awakening of all consciousness throughout cosmic evolution. Dr. Ervin Laszlo's research on cosmic consciousness suggests that the universe itself may be evolving toward greater consciousness complexity through the development of conscious beings who can participate in cosmic consciousness evolution. Human consciousness development may represent the universe becoming conscious of itself and developing the ability to consciously direct its own evolution. If individual human consciousness represents cosmic consciousness developing self-awareness through personal perspective, then quantum memory work becomes cosmic consciousness healing itself through individual healing experiences. Personal transformation becomes cosmic transformation because individual consciousness recognizes its fundamental unity with universal consciousness. The ultimate potential of quantum memory technologies may be the development of cosmic consciousness capabilities that allow individual awareness to participate directly in universal consciousness evolution. Instead of being limited to human memory patterns, consciousness could gain access to cosmic memory banks that contain the accumulated wisdom of consciousness evolution throughout universal history. When quantum memory access expands to cosmic scales, individual consciousness becomes capable of contributing to consciousness evolution projects that span galactic civilizations, cosmic epochs, and universal cycles of evolution that transcend individual human comprehension. But achieving cosmic consciousness capabilities requires completing the individual consciousness development work that resolves personal trauma patterns, integrates personality structures, and develops the emotional stability necessary for navigating cosmic consciousness resources without psychological overwhelm or spiritual inflation. The quantum memory technologies being developed through current consciousness research may be the tools that humanity needs to complete this individual consciousness development work efficiently enough to qualify for cosmic consciousness participation during the current universal evolution cycle. Your personal quantum memory work isn't just individual healing, it's conscious participation in cosmic consciousness evolution that contributes to universal awakening through unlimited individual expressions. Every trauma pattern you resolve, every limitation you transcend, every capability you develop becomes a gift to cosmic consciousness evolution that serves the awakening of all consciousness throughout universal history. The quantum memory patterns in your consciousness right now contain infinite potential for contributing to cosmic consciousness evolution. The choice is whether you'll remain unconscious of your cosmic significance or step into conscious collaboration with universal consciousness evolution through dedicated quantum memory development work. The universe has been waiting throughout all of cosmic evolution for conscious beings to discover their role as cosmic consciousness developers and begin consciously participating in universal awakening. Your quantum memory work represents the universe healing itself through individual consciousness development that serves cosmic consciousness evolution. What quantum memory patterns will you choose to heal? What consciousness capabilities will you develop? What contribution will you make to cosmic consciousness evolution through your individual quantum memory development work? The cosmic memory banks are ready to support your consciousness development. Universal consciousness is waiting for your conscious participation in cosmic evolution. The only question is whether you'll recognize your cosmic significance and begin the quantum memory work that serves universal awakening. Your consciousness is cosmic consciousness expressing itself through individual perspective. Your memory patterns are cosmic memory experiments that contribute to universal consciousness evolution. Your healing work is cosmic healing work that serves the awakening of all consciousness throughout universal evolution. Step into your cosmic significance. Begin your quantum memory work. Contribute to universal consciousness evolution through dedicated individual consciousness development that serves cosmic awakening. The universe is waiting for your conscious participation in cosmic consciousness evolution. Your time is now.